Yo, yo, this bro Rob. And like I told y'all, at 3 o'clock, I was gonna be back. I got my presentation that I had started, but didn't finish because my internet connection, although it is wired, it it was kind of boring and all of that. So I definitely want to finish, and I definitely am looking to have that discussion with whomever I disagree with what I'm saying. So um, at this point, what I'm about to start doing, is just reviewing what I done went over already, right? And so, I'm flipping through it right now. I had talked about the end of slavery and how heinous of an act that was. And then I had shared with y'all the last words of Malcolm X, and paraphrasing, basically he was saying that the new economic system that they made us economic slaves dependent upon them, and made us a permanent underclass. Then I start talking about the Reconstruction Amendments, right? The 13th Amendment, and how Lincoln gave his the people on the other side of the argument a backdoor by saying, except as a punishment for a crime, slavery could and should be used. Um, I talked about the 14th Amendment and how that made us naturalized citizens. I talked about the 15th Amendment that gave us the right to vote. I talked about the massacres that happened after the Civil War. They don't even have a number of how many were dead, how many were killed, because those Confederate soldiers was coming home. A lot of them, like I said, they refused to set they formerly enslaved free. I talked about how the president, Andrew Johnson, how he turned a blind eye to the violence. He didn't see it, right? Then I talked about how they instituted these black codes. The black codes are like the precursor for Jim Crow, right? And I gave my receipts. I gave y'all the basically the black code books from 4 different states, just to make sure that I'm being thorough, right? And then I talked about the Freedmen's Bank and how newly enslaved, formerly enslaved Africans, how they put their money into that bank and then the bank failed. And so they ended up losing everything, even though Congress had passed the law for them to get their money back. And so this is where I'm going to pick up today, right? This is where I'm going to pick up today, the grand betrayal. Because that's where it started breaking up real bad. Hey, peace to you, Cap. Cap PY2, man. Peace to you, brother. Thank you for falling through on me, man. And so I'm about to get into this information, and I'm about to start sharing my screen. Let me share my screen, right? Let me share my screen. Okay. And so let me get to the presentation. Now, while I'm going through the presentation, you know, all I'm doing is going over the information. That's what I'm doing. I'm going over the information. And so I'm not looking at the chat. I'm not looking at comments. I'm not looking at that. You know, the grand betrayal, also known in history books as the Compromise of 1877, right? Um, This was a closely contested election. Samuel J. Tilden, my bad, and Rutherford B. Hayes. They was in a close election in 1876, right? And so you will see on the left, that's Samuel Tilden. On the right, that's Rutherford B. Hayes, right? Tilden had won the popular vote by 250,000, 250,000 votes. But there were 4 states that came into question: Oregon, South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida, right? They go to electoral map, the electoral college map, right? Congress at this time, because those 4 states came into question, formed a 15-member delegation, right? And the South, they negotiated and they said, all right, all good. Even though I got won the popular vote, y'all can have y'all guy in the White House, right? But it was some concessions that they had negotiated for. And so that's what made Rutherford B. Hayes the next president of the United States of America. Now, this is why it's called the Grand Betrayal. His name was William Levy. William Levy made one of the most racist speeches in United States history on the floor of Congress. Basically, what he is saying right here, and I'm about to read this. He say, "Black emancipation caused despair and danger, and further claim the Louisiana's innocent maidens and helpless infants were in imminent peril." He's referring to Black folks now. "I hold it my sacred duty," he said, "to save Louisiana whites from the ruin of degradation which threatened them, and relieve my beloved state from the bondage which oppresses her." Right? So, in exchange for making Rutherford B. Hayes the president, right? The South, this is the states that had seceded from the Union. This is what they negotiated, right? And this is how it affected us the most. The federal troops that was in the South, they pulled them out. That was part of the concessions. Pull them federal troops out of the South. Democrats would receive one key position in the cabinet, and that cabinet was postmaster, right? And on top of that, the South wanted control of all the federal jobs. So as a postmaster, and then you got control over all of the jobs, right? All the federal jobs, that gave them a huge economic boost, right? The South also, they wanted to be able to get those contracts to build those railroads, especially through Texas. And then the last concession, that Rutherford B. Hayes not run for re-election in 1880. This is called the Grand Betrayal. And the reason why is because Black folks in the South, this ain't nothing but a few years after the end of the Civil War. They had been treating us like chattel for 200 years, 300 years leading up to this. And after 12 years, it was no way those people had changed. You can't legislate somebody to treat you better. And they gave control of the South back over to those racist individuals who had seceded from the Union just 12 years ago. Also, I want to point out Plessy versus Ferguson, giving the South, a few years after the Grand Betrayal, giving the South the legal foundation to continue to make black folks second-class citizens. What came out of Plessy versus Ferguson was the separate but equal doctrine, which gave backdrop to the Jim Crow laws that came directly after Plessy versus Ferguson. Now, Plessy versus Ferguson, that's bad enough, right? But how many of y'all know about human zoos? How many of y'all knew that they had human zoos? Human zoos. Now, what I want to point out to you, the little sister in the top right-hand corner, you see how it's little white kids there at the human zoos? You see them? What do you think? What picture does that paint in their mind in terms of that little girl? What picture do you think that paint in them young people mind? The people in the zoos are less human. Less human. This is the picture that's painted in those young people's mind. And you know, people can disagree and everything. You can disagree with that. But the truth be told, everybody that visited that zoo that day had to believe that these people in this zoo are less human. Less human. Don't forget about Christoph Miners, 1815, when he said that we are ugly people, that we are a moral people. We amoral, you know. And then Charles Darwin coming almost 45 years later, backing up Christoph Miners when he says, and it's called Darwinism for a reason, right? And it's a reason why it has survived to this point, that the strongest survive. You know, now I want to move on to the start of the 20th century and the effects of industrialization and World War I. So first point, by the United States creating a national currency overnight, that made us more wealthy. Not more rich, but more wealthy. Because now you are combining the agriculture and the science out of the South with the industrialization of the North. That made the US become the richest and most industrialized country in the world. So let me think about this for a second. If I'm rich beyond every other country in the world, am I concerned about equalizing things in this country? No, no. The other thing that industrialization brought about, the birth of robber barons. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Chase, Vanderbilt, then later on down the line, Henry Ford. What these people, you know, because we always talking about a system, you see. People run the system. What do these people got in common? I'm going to leave that up to you to figure out, right? But robber barons, the socialization of business and the way that they conducted business, it's still, profits over people, that's still something that exists today. So we should not overlook the birth of robber barons. Next, the US population grew from 40 million in 1870 to 76 million in 1900. Why you think they brung them 36 million people over here? A certain type of people as well. They were all European. They were all European. They had just released 4 million black folks. Another 200,000 was free already, but they just released 4 million black folks. And in one generation, that 4 million could easily turn into 10 million. And then 10 million could easily turn into 25 million. Do you follow? So, as a consequence or as a reaction to them having to end slavery, they brung over 36 million Europeans. I don't know why most historians don't look at European immigration at the beginning of the 20th century as a reaction to slavery. I don't know why, but that's exactly what it was. You know, and then I want to point out the end of World War I before I start talking about Garvey. The end of World War I. Those black soldiers coming home. Those black soldiers coming home, they wasn't about to get treated like a second-class citizen no more. No. Me and my wife ain't crossing the street for you no more, white man. No. I ain't crossing the street. I ain't dropping my head. I ain't crossing my street. I ain't crossing the street. I was just fighting for you. And you gonna treat me like a man. That's what was happening after World War I. And then during World War I, Booker T. Washington is coming into play. W.E.B. Du Bois is coming into play. But towards the end of the teens, 1916, 1917, this is what gives rise to Garvey. He ran the UNIA. W.E.B. Du Bois created the NAACP to compete with the UNIA. He didn't agree with the UNIA. Sound familiar? ADOS versus FBA. Anyway, I love the motto of Marcus Garvey organization. One God, one aim, one destiny. He had unified 4 million Africans across the diaspora. J. Edgar Hoover, who was part of the Bureau of Investigations, it ended up becoming the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI. His first assignment, well, not a first assignment, but his assignment was to find ways to find damning information about Garvey and discredit him. He referred to Garvey as a notorious Negro agitator. They wanted to keep things the exact way that they were. You know? Hoover, working for the BOI at this time, hired the first black FBI agent to infiltrate Garvey's ranks and spy on him. This individual that worked for Hoover is also the one that suggested that he buy the ship that he bought for the Black Star Line And this ship was not in good running condition. Everybody know that if you studied the history of it, right? But he's the one, and so what happens is Garvey, he takes in some money for the Black Star Line, and he mismanaged some money. You know, I don't want it to be a shock if you go and study it yourself. He did mismanage some money, right? He was charged with mail fraud. They gave him 5 years. But what I want to point out in the case, the trial records indicate that there was several improprieties during the prosecution of the case. Marcus Garvey, he's a hero of mine. I don't make no qualms about it. You know, I love this quote from Marcus Garvey. And this is what he say. He say, "We must give up the silly idea of folding our hands and waiting on God to do everything for us. If God had intended for that, then he would not have given us a mind. Whatever you want in life, you must make it up in your mind to do it for yourself." Marcus Garvey was a very inspiring figure at the turn of the 20th century for Black folks. And no matter what anybody say about Marcus Garvey, he's a hero of mine. But what I want to clearly point out is the reaction to the Garvey movement, to the Marcus Garvey movement. That reaction, the ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. Like I had just told you, right? Population. The Black population grew to about 10 million. We were all Republicans. So by giving women the right to vote, that balanced things out for the South. The South can now win elections again because they gave white women or women the right to vote. They still fighting us for our right to vote. They lynching brothers left and right. Why would they give all of a sudden? You mean to tell me that the white man all of a sudden he got a conscience to give women the right to vote? It was a political move by the South to give women the right to vote. Moving along. Now, I know your history teacher. I know they taught you about the Red Summer of 1919. They had to. They had to. Now, it was a bunch of, it was 60 documented attacks on Africans here living in America. But one attack in particular, I want to bring your attention to. This brother you see, his name was Will Brown. Will Brown got caught by a lynch mob. That's Will Brown on fire right there in front of those men. They shot him, they beat him, and then they burned him. Mm. But one thing I definitely want to point out, and I seen Taz do this last night when he was talking about Fred Hampton. I want you to take a real good look at these men in this picture. Their facial expressions are not appropriate for a man on fire in front of them. To the right of the picture, you see them men with them smiles, them smug smiles on their face. Then it's a man, he in the middle, he got on an all black suit, black shirt. look Latino in a way. He could be Hispanic, he could be Latino, he could be, it's possible. He also got a slight smirk on his face. But to the left of the picture, once again, there go a young Caucasian male. What do you think he's thinking about? You see the smile? It's not appropriate for a man to be dying in front of him or already dead and on fire. And this young man is sitting there smiling. Do you think that maybe after this horrific event, that young man thought to himself, it ain't nothing wrong with lynching Negroes, as they called us at that time. Nothing wrong with it. This act of violence stripped Black folks of their humanity in this young man's mind. Just wanted to point it out. Now, again, I'm sure your history teacher taught you about the Red Summer of 1919. The phrase was coined by James Weldon Johnson. Now, these are the events. In the dead of winter, then we in the spring. You see these? Look at that. That's still the spring, y'all. All of those events happen in the spring. Now I'm about to start showing y'all why they call it the Red Summer of 1919. All of these events happen in the summer of 1919. You see that? Day after day after day. I'm still going. That's the summer, y'all. That's the summer. So you would think, that the United States government, that they would react to the violence, right? Huh? Look at what's going on. November the 11th, the 13th, December the 27th, in the dead of winter. Just like Tulsa, Oklahoma. These are all places where Black folks that made a life for themselves. After the Freedmen Bank fell and Plessy versus Ferguson and all of these different things that happened, Black folks that made a way for themselves. They done built up some communities. And then in the Red Summer of 1919, all of these communities are destroyed. Destroyed, fam. Destroyed. So, what am I saying to you? What I'm saying is that almost looked like a military campaign. It started in January and it ended in December. So that's 1919. Then now, we fast forward in the middle of the Great Depression. What do they start? The Tuskegee Experiment. This was a clinical study that was conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service. The purpose of the study was to observe syphilis untreated. Did y'all hear what I said? Untreated. Nearly 400 of the participants had syphilis, and 200 didn't have it to give it a control. The men were told that the study was going to last 6 months. They wasn't told that they had syphilis. They called it at that time bad blood. The study ended up lasting 40 years, y'all. 40 years. After the funding for the treatment for the study was lost, it continued without informing the men that they would never be treated. This is the man that made that decision, Oliver Winger. He's the one that made the decision to keep the Tuskegee experiment going even after they lost they funding. Look, right, even after they found out that penicillin could treat it successfully, they never gave it to him. Never gave it to him. The Tuskegee experiment, by far the most infamous biomedical research study against one set of people in the history of the world, lasted for 40 years. Now, I got some conspiracy theories because I can't prove it. Age of syphilis. Yeah, it's supposed to make you go crazy. But you know what? You know what else is ironic about the last stage of syphilis? It destroys your immune system. Doesn't that sound a lot like AIDS? Doesn't that sound a lot like HIV? Because that's what happened. It destroyed your immune system. Right? That's what happens. It destroys your immune system. So what am I saying? What I'm saying to you is, one more time, it's a conspiracy theory. I can't corroborate it. All I'm saying to you is that as soon as the Tuskegee experiment was ending, this is when they diagnosed AIDS. This is when they diagnosed HIV. Moving along. Now we at Brown versus the Board of Education, and a plethora of things have happened leading up to Brown versus the Board of Education. All right. So we got our hero, Thurgood Marshall. Him along with a team of lawyers are running all over the country, fighting case after case. Fighting case after case. For who? For us. They had a team of lawyers. And so a lot of these brothers don't get the credit that they deserve. So that's why I put their picture in here. But Brown versus the Board of Education definitely highlighted the brilliant legal mind of the Honorable Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall. But probably the most impactful piece of evidence that they brought about in the case, the doll test, y'all. The doll test. Now, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with the doll test, right? But what they did was they gave, young black children a white doll and a black doll. Hey, which one of these dolls you think is ugly? They picked the black doll. Which one of these dolls you think is smart? They picked the white doll. Which one of these dolls you think will be most likely to, find a cure to, some type of illness or disease? They picked the white doll. What that tells you, what it should tell you is that our people suffer. Our people suffer from mental illness. Mental illness. The socialization that white is right. That's mental illness, y'all. And a lot of us are victims of this. The mental illness, the protracted war against our mind, against our very being. We have fallen victim to it. They redid the dog test, maybe about 10 years ago. Same results, same exact results. So we still dealing with it. Another consequence that came out of Brown versus the Board of Education. Most of the black teachers at that time lost their job. 99% of all of the black principals lost their job. We basically said that it was probably better to have somebody else besides us educate our own. Psychological damage and mental illness. That's what was proven when you look at Brown versus the Board of Education. Moving along, next decade, which brought about the Civil Rights Movement. And then following the Civil Rights Movement, you had the Black Power Movement. But what's most, the gravity of it, the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. I want to point to this picture. You see Dr. King, he's more than likely, at a college campus right here. This was just a picture. Man, no lie to you. This is just a picture that I had pulled off of Google. Because I definitely wanted to put Dr. King in here, being that he was the figurehead for the Civil Rights Movement. And so while he's speaking at this college campus, do y'all see anybody in the crowd that might look a little suspicious? Maybe this dude right here. He look a little suspicious. What about this other dude? Him right there. He looks suspicious, don't he? They do. They look a little suspicious. I want you to take a real good look at this picture, though. That's the window on the right, y'all. And if you focus on those blinds, you see it's somebody in the room, fam, looking through the blinds. They're a little back from the blinds, but you can clearly see. And then you see the other window. Look at the other window. You see how the blinds are cracked? And if you focus, you can see him. You can see him. So why am I pointing this out? Dr. King, at his core, was a Baptist preacher. His message, nonviolence. He was under heavy surveillance everywhere he went. Heavy surveillance. Just want to make sure that I point that out. Who was doing it? The FBI, like I said earlier, right? The Weather Underground, they broke into an FBI office. And that's how we know about COINTELPRO. That's how we know about it. COINTELPRO, that's how we know. The Civil Rights Movement and Black Power Movement Civil Rights Bill in 1964. To Dr. King's left, if you don't know who that man is, his name, Stokely Carmichael, better known to others as Kwame Ture. Later on in life, he changed his name to Kwame Ture. And the transition of power is the reason why I put this picture in there. Dr. King, I can't remember him saying that Stokely Carmichael was tweaking or Stokely Carmichael was this or that. He wasn't talking crap about him. He might have disagreed with him, but he wasn't talking crap about Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. And Kwame Ture, he does get the credit for coining the term Black Power. A very good book by Kwame Ture, Black Power, The Politics of Liberation. Very good book. So if you want to understand Black Power from a 60s, 70s perspective and what they was thinking, you know, this is a very good book. You should go and get it, right? But this little old lady right with the microphone in her hand, that's Fannie Lou Hamer. Standing behind her is Kwame Ture, and that's Ella Baker to her left. And, you know, Fannie Lou Hamer, in my opinion, does not get enough credit for her stand during the Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement. They very famously had interviewed Fannie Lou Hamer, and they asked her, they say, Fannie, you know, man, you getting these death threats, and they done already beat you and put you in the hospital for 2 weeks and stuff. Why, man, why do you keep on fighting and, you know, marching, and what is it that keep you going? She said, I got a profound faith in God. And they said, well, what if they kill you? You ever think about that? She paused for a second, and then she said, very famously, if they kill me, I'ma die, and I'ma fall 5 feet, 4 inches closer to freedom. This lady was bold, y'all. I love Fannie Lou Hamer. I think Ella Baker, she should also get more credit than she gets, more recognition than she get. She was the one that thought about the March on Washington. That was her idea, Ella Baker. And then we got our champion. Then we got our lion, El Haj Malik Shabazz, better known to others as Malcolm X. I'm sure it's probably some agents and things of that nature in the crowd, you know, but our brother spoke truth to power. Those things that we needed to hear and wanted to hear at that time. So what I want to point out now, the reaction to the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Now, that very top line, right? That's Black folks, 2010. That's Black folks, 2010. And remember what we're talking about. We're talking about the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. That's about 1964 right there. A small little uptick, right? Small little uptick. But then we got to take in consideration, right? You know, we got Nixon coming in the office. And in 1971, he started the war on drugs. Now, for people who don't know, right? Why street gangs got started. Street gangs got started because when they passed the civil rights law, the civil rights bill in 1964, this is when the police started patrolling our neighborhoods like crazy. And they basically criminalized being black. And so the brothers got together and they police. Black Panthers, the Black Crips, the Bloods, the Vice Lords, the GDs, you know what I'm saying? The Black Disciple. Man, these people was fighting against the police. Why do you think the CVL, why you think it's called CVL, Conservative Vice Lords? Black folks ain't conservative. Mayor Daley here in Chicago at the time, he was a Democrat. And so to be opposed to the mayor, that's why they call themselves the Conservative Vice Lords. The proof is in the pudding. There go the numbers right there. Y'all can see it for yourself. Them patrolling our neighborhoods heavily after the passage of the Civil Rights Bill, along with the war on drugs, is what led to mass incarceration. Natural day mass incarceration. It was called the Great Decision. And so, for people who are not familiar with this man in front of you, this is our master teacher. This is our master teacher. His name is Dr. Chancellor Williams, got my namesake. Now, this video is not that long. It's only 3 minutes. So I'm about to play the video. Please bear with me, okay? But you got to hear what the master teacher had to say about the drugs. Here, let's listen to what he got to say. I'm sorry about that, y'all. I was just looking at the comments. And so I'm sorry about that, y'all. But it's about a 3-minute clip where Dr. Chancellor Williams is talking about the decision that the 5 families made. These are the 5 La Costa Nostra, Italian families with that they made, that they gonna sell drugs and they gonna sell it exclusively in the Black community. All right, that's what the great decision was, that they sell it exclusively in the Black community. Now, again, Nixon is the one, Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick, right? He's the one that started the war on drugs. His domestic policy chief, his name is John Ehrlichman. The Nixon, these are his words. The Nixon White House had 2 enemies, the anti-war left and Black people. This is what he was telling the reporter now. The reporter, his name is Dan Baum. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Now, the reporter said, Ehrlichman's admission was due to, this is over. It was decades ago. I'm close to the end of my life. Him and other aides to Nixon, I'm close to the end of my life. So I can just say this stuff candidly. What difference do it make? I'm about to go to the grave. But Baum, this is what he said. These guys, they knew they had done bad things, and they were glad finally when it was no longer going to cost them anything to be able to talk about it, to atone for it. Basically, they didn't have to worry about going to jail for doing that. One more time, his name, John Ehrlichman. This is what he admitted a few months before he passed away. He admitted it. So, with the war on drugs and all of these other things that I done mentioned to you that Black folks they had to deal with, right? We can't forget about the people who sacrificed. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of giants. For people who don't know, that brother right there, that's William Steele. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And they sacrifice. It cannot be overlooked. They sacrifice should not be overlooked. In my heart of hearts, I believe that if I teach a young lady about a Elaine Brown, about a Ella Baker, a Fannie Lou Hamer, a Harriet Tubman, if I teach a young lady about them, Angela Davis, Asanta Shakur, if I teach them about these women, they will see themselves in their story. And what I'm hoping is that they imitate them. Young man, this was just a couple of weeks ago. Young man, you know who you look like to me? Man, you look like Medgar Evers, bro. I'm telling you, man, y'all look I mean, I'm talking about y'all could be cousins or something. Man. Do you got anybody in your family last name, Evers? Nah, I ain't got nobody in my family last name Evers. Who is Medgar Evers? Well, he was some civil rights leader that you want to teach me about? This brother don't even understand. He a young man. He don't even understand how impactful that is to even look like somebody that fought for us. We stand on the shoulders of giants. So earlier, I told y'all that I had a question. And my question is this: what category do you fall in? What category do you fall in? Do you believe that it's something inherently wrong with Black folks, Black people, Africans, ADOS? You think it's something wrong with us? Why can't we get ahead? Why we only own 2% of all of the wealth in the country? Why we don't do good in school? Why it seem like we always going to jail? Do you think it's something inherently wrong with Black people? Or or is it the way Black people are treated and perceived to be? No matter how I try to carry myself as a professional, and I try to be civil, right? In my heart, fam, in my mind, on the inside, I'm raging. I'm raging on the inside, like you see these people in this picture. On the inside, I'm raging. So where do we go from here? Because see, after this discussion is over, right? A lot of people don't want to know the history of what didn't happen to us. Oh, that's ugly. I don't want to see no more slave movies and every. Where do we go from here? And I'm talking about your behavior. Do you go ahead and acquiesce, form a adaptive behavior? You know, you just adapt to the lot of life that life then gave you, and you just take your lumps and keep on going. But what's the outcome of that? What is the outcome of adaptive behavior? You can't dictate it. It's basically left up to the person who's creating the circumstances. You could adapt a survivalist behavior, and a lot of us have. I'm gonna just take care of me and mine. That's all I'm worried about. That's all I'm concerned about. I ain't worried about nobody else. I'm a survivalist, right? But why are you surviving? Why did you take on this survivalist behavior? Why did you take it on? It's because of the circumstances, the reality that somebody else has made, that has forced you to live in it. So me, right? For me and my house, right? I have decided wholeheartedly to live with my purpose. And my purpose is informed by my intentions, right? My intention is to have a legacy building behavior. Everything that I put my hands to, I can hand it off to my sons, and they can hand it off to their sons. That's my full intention. legacy building behavior. And I fully intend to model that behavior going forward. That behavior is revolutionary. That's what you are. If you want to build a legacy, and you are the descendants of them Africans, you are talking about some revolutionary behavior. Let's be very clear about that. Right? And so this goes into, I'm gonna end it right there. That goes into my next presentation. Right? So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And now, at this point, what I would love to do, let me flip over here and see. Do I got any dislikes at this time? Let me see. How many dislikes do I? Okay, so I got all likes. On the last presentation, I had 5 dislikes. And so the only reason I bring that up right now is because if there is something that you disagree with, if there is something that you still got some questions about, or an event that you felt like was important, but I didn't mention it in my presentation today, right now is that time. Right now is that time. Right? And so let me put it in the chat. I'm about to put this link in the chat, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Because I want to know why some people seem to believe that we done did it to ourselves. You know, this black first stuff, this ain't gonna work. And, you know, I ain't, you know, come on, man. Come on, man. I done literally showed you generation after generation after generation. We talking about 27 generations of people that have oppressed us on purpose. They did it on purpose. I done gave you the receipts. I done gave you the proof. And so at this point, if anybody disagree, or if anybody want to add on to the discussion, that's why I put it in the chat. Because I want to see if anybody got anything else that they can add on or disagree with at this point. So I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I can back up everything that I just said. Everything. So while I'm waiting for, you know, that brave soul to come on down, right? The whole purpose of this presentation was to show everybody what has been done against our people. And then here we go, attacking each other. Attacking each other. I hope that everything that I done shared with y'all has been clear. You know, for those that's listening, right? If it was something, if you feel like everything that I shared with you was straightforward, just let me know. You know, by putting a 1 in the chat. All right, I got somebody. Let me see. Add to the stream. All right. Hey sis, how you doing?
I'm blessed and I'm grateful. Good afternoon, Brother
Good
Rob.
afternoon, Rainy Women. How are you?
I'm blessed and I'm grateful. Man, I just want to say, first of all, that this was a very well done presentation, you know, and yeah, something else that I don't know if people really realize or really pay attention to in the photos that you shared as for where the lynchings and the burnings, is that there were lots of women and children of various ages in those audiences as well. And they used to send postcards out. They made postcards from those lynchings and from those burnings. And those postcards became prized items, very valuable. And those people had children. Those children grew up and had grandchildren and great grandchildren. So it's really baffling when we hear our people talk as if it's all in the past. Talk as if mingling with others, with the non-blacks, and well, with the, I'm going to call them right now, I'm going to say the CBs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That mingling with the CBs is just a natural thing to do because you can't get along, or you don't have the patience, or you don't have the perseverance. You don't have the strength to persevere with your own people and understand the plight and the struggle and the conditioning.
Yes, sis. That's literally what I was trying to point out. I was trying to point out the fact that they created the conditions that created these personalities. You know, we are victims of propaganda. The same propaganda that you was seeing, with Aunt Jemima and with Uncle Ben and with, you know what I mean? Those are things to where, like, you know what the number one job is for black men in America? You know what the number one job is? Security. We do security.
Hmm.
Why do we do security? It's because we have limited ourselves in our thinking. That's why we were, I ain't about to be studying, I ain't about to be doing all of that. I ain't about to. And then we end up protecting somebody else's valuables instead of acquiring our own. That's the that's the point of this presentation. These are the people that created the conditions. Why you think black folks don't go to the doctor like how we supposed to? Because of Christoph Miners, because of Darwin, Charles Darwin, because of the Tuskegee Experiment. You see? So, that's basically what I'm just laying out a framework for why we should be black first, because we don't have any friends. John Henry Clark said it best. We don't have any friends. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, there's something wrong. It's psychological damage, the same damage that those children in their doll test suffer from. That's what it is. But my fault, Queen. I ain't mean to go on a rant. Man, you know what I'm saying? That was the whole point of this presentation.
Oh, I get it. I get it. You're right on point.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So, that's pretty much. Did you had something else you wanted to add on?
No, sir. That was all.
All right. All right. Well, I definitely wanted to get y'all ready for my next presentation, right? And this next presentation is going to be on the concept and color of God. The concept and the color of God. Now, I'm not saying that black folks shouldn't believe in God, shouldn't be a Christian, shouldn't be a Muslim, a Fapa, whatever it is that you believe. And let me just preface this by saying You can choose to be a Christian, a Democrat, a Republican, a conservative, a liberal, or whatever it is that you choose. But you are born black. The creator picked that for you before you could talk. You were born black. So that's the team that you on, fam. That's your team. You know what I'm saying? That's your team. And so the concept and the color of God, it was inspired by the 13th chapter in the ISIS papers. You know, and I'm riding in on the shoulders of Frances Cress Westland. And for those that don't know, she is from Chicago. I've heard her speak twice. I heard her speak twice. Once at Northeastern, the Jacob Carruthers Center, and then once at Chicago State, a historically black college here in Chicago. Um, so that is definitely going to be my next presentation. Um, so at this point, you know, if I don't have anybody that disagree, you know, and I appreciate you, Raining Women, for coming on and letting me know that I ain't crazy. You know what I'm saying? I knew what I was thinking when I put it together, but I know, sis, that you wouldn't lie to me and tell me that it was good or that it was straightforward, and it wasn't. So I appreciate you coming on and you know, just giving me a vote of confidence that what I said today and over the course of the last few days, that it be received and it be received well. Um, with that, you know, I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody listening. I hope that if you wasn't familiar with some of these things that I covered today, that you are now familiar, and that I get some more people that want to unify and be black first, because that's what you were born. You were born black. And with that, one more time, I appreciate everybody for coming through. I didn't get it off my chest. I feel a lot better now. You know what I'm saying? And I hope that everybody can hear me clearly. I mean, once I shut it down, I'm gonna go back and listen to it a little bit just to make sure that I wasn't breaking up. But I appreciate everybody listening. And until next time, y'all. Later.